Well, this Monday, June 18th, we have the whole council meeting to order. I just want to start off with the statement of honoring a brief and precious life of Jacob Caddy. If you'd all join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Councilors, if you would, page 77, the airport budget. Amount requested, $249,024. Amount allowed by the mayor, $249,024. Councilor Conry.
On page 77, Mr. Girton, you have a temporary line person. Total spent in 2007 was $0, and requested was $31,380 for 2008, allowed by the mayor. Is this a new position?
It's a position we carried over from last year, and what we're hoping to do with it is we've got one part-timer there that we're thinking about maybe bringing on as a temporary. Right now, he's working for like $10 an hour, and he has saved me thousands and thousands of dollars. And we just don't think that it's fair that we keep him at that rate. We're just hoping to bring him up.
So basically, you would be eliminating the part-time position at $10.50 and creating a position at $15.69.
Well, there's a couple of people that might go in there, yes.
Make a motion that be deleted from the 2008 budget.
Second.
Motion made and seconded on the temporary line person, $31,380, to reduce that line to $0. Any discussion? Where in the budget right now does that person as a part-time person exist?
I'm sorry?
If you're paying that person, you said currently.
Right.
Where on this page does that person's current money come from? If you're paying him now, then there should be a line item that's being reduced to increase that line item.
He would be under the part-timers. There are two there.
Okay, but you also increase that line instead of taking that money away. So if you're taking that one person and upgrading them, why would it show as you're still increasing your part-time line person? So you're really looking for a new position.
I am. We are looking to see the business to increase over there, and I'm going to need more staff. And that's kind of, I was going to bring him there and put somebody else in here.
So, under the part-time line person, you currently have, it says 4. Well, it says 2, but your number of employees in the 2008 budget says 4. Is that a...
You know, now that Deb, I don't really remember what happened here.
You can have a seat at the table.
We have 4 people now.
Okay.
One of the people that are included in the part-time are winter snow removal. Call.
So I guess in my question in funding or reducing this 31,000, is that person that is currently a part-time person making 1/4 of this $33,000 now? So they're only making about $10,000 a year, and you're proposing to give them $31,000 a year?
He's actually making less. He's making less.
8,000.
All of them don't work the same number of hours.
Nor do they work at the same seasons.
Any other questions? Counselor Cruz?
I'd like to get a definitive answer as to, thank you, Council President, as to whether or not there are 4 employees, 3 employees, 2 employees under the part-time line person.
Sorry?
How many part-time line persons do you actually have?
Have 1, 2, 3,
3 and the snow.
and the snow removal person that's on call.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None in opposition.
Did you just vote? Excuse me, did you just eliminate that line item?
Yes. $31,380.
Which line are we talking about?
The temporary line person.
Oh, okay. I can live with that.
Thank you. Counselor Cruz?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like an explanation on the overtime and holidays. Estimated in '06 was 75, I'm sorry, 06 was 75, '07 was a little over 4,000, and this year you're asking for 12,000?
Yes. We have buyback coming in? Help me explain that one.
Within our budget, we don't have a separate line item for holidays. So because we're open 24/7,
Today.
our holiday pay at time and a half, or time plus time and a half, is taken out of that line item. I believe the police and fire department have individual line items specifically to handle the holiday pay. The increase in the overtime has to do with not being able to anticipate what the snow removal costs will be next year. Unfortunately, this past year, we had a couple of storms on holidays and had to pull in full-time line persons in order to cover those costs. So it's basically in anticipation of being able to cover snow removal for next year. Obviously, if we don't have snow removal, then we don't have to pay the overtime and call in the added staff.
But we are staffed 24 hours a day.
I understand that. Do you mind if I'd like to know what your snow removal costs were for last year?
Year-to-date, that line item has spent $4,043 year-to-date.
I'd like to make a motion to reduce that holiday and overtime to 10,000 instead of 12,000. Remind the council we're basing this on speculation.
Counselor DeSalvatore?
I'd like to know your explanation for the jump from a little over $4,000 to $12,000 on that line item. What's your reasoning?
Help me, Debbie.
It's basically to anticipate the snow removal costs for next year.
What happened last year?
Last year, as you know, we didn't spend as much. We did not have the number of storms that we had to clear the runways and make and be open. And also, a little bit of the increase was because we had to be open during the holiday. So full staff came in and both full-time line personnel had to be in. Typically, during a standard holiday, we go down the line of seniority asking if that person would rather have the day off or come in at the overtime rate. with that anticipated, most of the time, a lot of our line personnel, because of knowing that the budgets are very difficult, take the time off and just have the regular holiday pay rather than the time and a half. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now.
So out to the airport, just about anybody can jump in a truck and plow snow?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, just checking.
I'm talking about a regular holiday, not a snow removal holiday.
What was your motion, Jay?
Made a motion to reduce the line item from 12,000 to 10,000.
Counselor Connery.
It's all right with you, Counselor Cruz. I'd like to amend your motion. To cut.
This motion has not.
It hasn't
Hasn't been
been,
seconded.
hasn't been
There
seconded.
is no
Okay.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Counselor Connery.
Cut the $12,000 to 6.
Second.
Motion made and seconded on overtime holiday to reduce the line item from $12,000 to $6,000. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One in opposition.
That what?
Anything further on page 77? Moving on to page 78. Airport expenses. Amount requested, $779,100. Amount allowed by the mayor, $766,176. Councilor Boisvert?
Yeah, thank you. Line item for aviation fuel and oil. Are we anticipating a much busier year this year?
We've gone up from last year another 10% on our jet fuel. Yes, sir.
We've gone up 10% in usage?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Cruz?
Same line item, aviation fuel and oil. I remember a conversation when you were in front of us, Mr. Girton, in reference to a comment being made by yourself or one of your staff members saying that you're using less fuel because your price was so much higher than everyone else's.
No, just the opposite. Our prices are much lower than anybody else around here.
So a 10% increase, are we comparable to everybody else?
We're better than.
We're better than.
I could save a regular corporation almost $2,000 if it would come to my airport fuel versus Hanscom.
All right, so with that said, then you could increase your fuel use or your fuel fees to make up the difference of whatever this council, if it should decide to cut back a little more. Am I correct?
I can increase it a little bit, but then I'm right there with Nashua, who's a big competitor of ours. I'm higher than Orange is, and I'm higher than Keene is.
And the 580, the 600 you were question was for a 10% increase? 10%? My math.
These dollars is, that's to buy the fuel. We make money on that.
I understand
If I
that.
can sell $600,000 worth of fuel, I've made well over $100,000 on it.
Okay. If you,
But to cut this line out, it means I can't buy fuel.
I understand that. And when no one's saying we're going to cut it, we could reduce it.
Or even to reduce it means I can say I can't sell it. This is
Of-
only so I can buy it.
Of your averages, how much of reserve do you have at the end of your fiscal year? If you're buying $600,000 worth of fuel, at the end of that year, what you have, you must have stats, excuse me, stats as far as what your usage has been like. Do we have 1,000 gallons left over at the end of the year? Do we have nothing left over?
It doesn't really work that way.
Well, common sense tells me it might work that way. I would think I might be.
We're buying it in 8,000 gallon clunks.
Okay, thank you.
And we have to pay for it in advance, so when we get it. So I need about, what is it, about $30,000 of cash flow. That's what I need to be able to buy my fuel. And that's all I've got.
So you're prepaying for your fuel.
$45,000. I'm sorry?
Do we have any reserves of last year's budget?
No, we're running
Absolutely
tight. We're breaking even.
Thank you.
Counselor Connery?
Yes, just to clarify something, Fred, in 2007, $503,216 for fuel.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the council what the revenue realized was from that expenditure of $500,000?
It's hard because the fuel fluctuates so much, but we're buying the fuel average about about $3 a gallon or thereabouts, $3.50, and then we're making about, is that right, $3.50? The average when you put jet fuel, jet and.
What we did was we took an average of
Yeah.
the 100 low lead cost and the cost to the jet fuel. The average is approximately $4 per gallon.
Yeah. And we
I'm just looking for the total revenue that was realized by the airport.
80 cents a gallon.
No, the total revenue. Fred indicated that he needs $589,000. Well, what is that price going to be after all that fuel is sold at $589,000? Are we going to make $1.2 million? Are we going to make $1 million?
We're going to make about $150,000 or something.
$150,000.
Through April and May, the amounts through May, they had spent $295,462, and through April, because for some reason the revenues are off by a month, through April, their revenues on that less than $295,000 was $409,173. So they made over $100,000 on their $300,000 purchases.
Thank you.
It's good to have updated numbers. I mean, these numbers that we have in here are just guesswork or a little bit tight for us. Councilor Cruz.
Thank you, Council President.
Cents a gallon.
Councilor Cruz.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to know exactly what equipment rental is. What exactly are we renting for the airport under line item equipment rental? $2,500?
Every now and then, we need to go out and rent a pump or something like that. It's just equipment that we need at the airport, like maybe a chipper or incidentals that we don't have at the airport.
Plus monthly, we rent
Oh.
the mechanics rags and the dumpsters.
Thank you.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you explain to me why the clothing allowance line is increasing by 70% and 80% over fiscal 2006?
Which is that? You know,
I would imagine that's the extra person that they want to make as a full-time as opposed to part-time. But that's just a guess.
When I took the job, one of the things that I proposed to the commission was that we make our staff a little bit more identifiable. And one of the first things people look at an airport is the people that work there, and it's an impression. I was hoping to get them in uniforms of some kind other than just a T-shirt. And that's what that was for.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Clark.
Mr. President, thank you. Fred, under security and compliance, last year you had 0. This year you have $3,000. Can you explain that?
Since 9/11, a lot of things have been happening, and we put that in there just, we have to buy our badge. We need some flex money to buy our badge, the badges, the airport badges that everybody has to have. And things like this. These are costing us, what, $2 a piece, something like that? $10 a piece. They're expensive, but we do get some of that back from the people that are getting the badges.
We've also
But-
been putting the fences the maintenance of the fences and the gates and the security card readers under that line item. Previous to us taking over and dividing out the categories through QuickBooks to have a little bit better idea as to how everything was being spent, we decided to pull the security portion out of it because past management had it mixed into office expenses to buy badges. They had the fences under groundskeeping and all other different categories. So what we just tried to do is be able to know how much it cost to run the airport, the way that we are mandated to do it, to be able to spend the money and pay what we needed to do, so that obviously the council and the city and ourselves knew how we had to spend the money. Some of this is mandated and we don't have any control over, and putting it under these badges when you purchase them under office expense when it's clearly not.
We can't add to the budget, but I think one of the things that we talked about a few weeks ago was when we had Comcast in here. I still can't believe that the airport has poor communication with, dial-up connections to the internet. To me, that's crazy.
No, we still do. And should you have an emergency, we could have a real problem there.
We could have a real problem down there.
Absolutely.
And,
But Comcast doesn't want to come down.
well, I think we'll remember that next time their contract comes up. At least, if I'm here or not here, I'll remind the person who is here that Comcast did not really help us out in our time of need. 40 grand to do something like that is a drop in the bucket to that corporation, and they didn't help us out too much. We still have to investigate getting better communication down there, there's no question. So I guess what I'm saying is next year, I'd like you to have more on that line.
Thank you.
Councilor Donnelly?
Thank you, Mr. President. On line 1, contracted services, city reimbursement, Mr. Saracen. This pays for all current reimbursements, insurance, this,
Pays for most of it. It's been pretty much left at level funding because it was difficult to go all the way with a full charge of fringes and other benefits may make it difficult for the airport to make ends meet. So we haven't changed that line item for a few years. So it could be higher, but it isn't.
so if this is true, then the city may be subsidizing, the taxpayers may be subsidizing the airport.
On this line item, yes, a little bit.
And what about retirement?
Well, that would be calculated in the fringe, so that and mainly health insurance. Those are the two line items that would cover most of the cost of this. But it would be higher if we did a full charge.
So, I mean, one of the discussions, one of the arguments of the airport is it doesn't cost the city any money. And I understand that there are a lot of pluses to have an airport. It's something that differentiates us between other cities. However, I don't think the taxpayers should be subsidizing it.
Right.
If they're advertising the good things about the airport, I mean, if we're subsidizing it there, we're also subsidizing it when the police officers go down to respond to a call, or the fire department. It should be at least breaking even, if not giving us a profit. So if the mayor's allowing this at a lower rate, I don't think he's treating the taxpayers or any of us correctly. That amount should be higher. Obviously, we can't do it, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that it should be higher. Thank you.
At this time, we only have 4 full-time employees. Only 2 out of the 4 have health insurance in the city.
Okay, so whatever the Councilor DeSalvatore?
With that being said, Mr. Saracen did say it could be a bit higher. Can you give us a guesstimate at what that would be sitting at? What
I haven't-
becomes the city's responsibility?
I haven't had a chance to look into this, so I don't know. I'd rather
All right.
defray on that.
Councilor Cruz?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like an explanation on catering. What exactly is catering? Do we cater to someone?
Yes, we do. Every time often when a charter flight will come in, they'll ask for catering, and we have to put out for it. We get it back out. We have the expense of going off field, going over to what's the name of the restaurant? Panera Bread, one of those people, getting
Those Fornos.
Since when did it become the airport's job to
It's a
cater to
service
someone that comes
offered
in?
by FBOs all over the country, at every airport in America.
Thank
It's a
you.
standard procedure.
Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore, did you have a follow-up?
No, no thanks.
Councilor Donnelly?
Thank you, Mr. President. It says outside audit. When the mayor requested to have the audit done, it was in the last was it in last year or the year before? It hasn't been since 2006?
That was the special audit that was done for the, when they investigated the airport. That's why that line was there. There hasn't been a special audit since that one occurred a few years ago. That's why I think they left it in.
So the only audit that's done now is through your office?
Yeah, well, there's also an audit that's done annually for the school department. They audit the end of the year report, and the school department pays for that also. That's
No, I
it.
mean, for the airport, there's no other audit?
No, their audit is part of our audit.
Okay. Thank you.
All set. Thank you very much.
That's it, go away.
My councilors to page 43. Police Personal Services. Do you wish to do this one page at a time? I know the last time there was 2 pages wastewater. I did both pages total. Would you prefer to do this one page at a time as opposed to both pages as a total? Police Personal Services, total on page 44. Amount requested, $7,096,120. Allowed by the mayor, $7,096,120.
Excuse me,
Good
Council
evening.
President, if I
How are
could.
you?
I'd like to have all 3 of my captains up here as we go through this budget. I'm going to have Captain Tasker here. He's in charge of technical services. He'll be able to answer in depth any questions you have in terms of contracts, fixed costs, and other items in there. But Captain Mark Looney's going to be here tonight. He's going to speak about staff services, a little bit about the training budget and things of those nature, so that we all get a good understanding of what this budget is about. And I also have the operations captain here tonight, Captain Phil Kearns. He will be able to speak to our deployment grants or anything of that nature. So I think that we'll be able to give you a very comprehensive picture of what we're doing here in the police department right now. As you go on, I do want to point out, as you go through this budget, you're going to see some footnotes on the bottom, on a couple of pages, and I would ask you primarily to ignore those footnotes. Those were put on there as a result of past budgeting. This process started a long time ago. Those footnotes don't necessarily apply at this point. They probably shouldn't have been on there. So I just want to alleviate any confusion that might go with that. Before I get going, I'd like to read a very short personal statement. about the 2008 Police Department budget. Fitchburg Police Department is presenting its 2007-2008 budget this evening for your review. This budget process has been long and laborious, has gone back up until February of earlier this year. It has undergone several reviews, massive differences in calculations, information back and forth, corrections. A lot of time and energy has been put into this process. As a result, you're being presented a budget that represents significant cuts, including most prominently the layoff of 9 police officers. My job as Chief of Police is to submit a budget that best fulfills the public safety needs of the city of Fitchburg. After careful consideration with my command staff and operating under the imposed cuts that I was required by the mayor to reduce this budget before you, it represents what I feel is the best delivery of service to the citizens of Fitchburg under the imposed current fiscal crisis as the date that this budget was submitted, which was probably about 2 weeks ago. And lastly, for myself, for my own personal situation, I would currently waive my contracted salary increase of 3% as of July 1st, 2008. This is a personal decision based on my personal values. I feel that I am currently in a situation where I can afford in my own life, state, and condition to waive this increase. Although this increase was negotiated well over a year ago, and even though I do not think it is excessive, if it means laying off police officers, for me personally, and only for me personally, I cannot in good conscience take this raise at this time.
Thank you, Chief. Councilors. Councilor Connery.
Yes, Mr. President. First, I would say thank you to the chief. Secondly, I would remind this department and any department that the actions that the Council of the Whole takes during these budget sessions are only recommendations on the part of this city council. We will be revisiting all the budgets prior to the 1st of July. I would suggest, Mr. President, that this page 1 and page 2, as far as the salaries are concerned, we look back to Saturday when we passed a motion to freeze salaries at the 2007 level and asked the mayor to revisit all contracts. This is not to say that the mayor is going to cut contracts, and it is not to say that the city council is going to cut contracts, but we did pass a motion. So in essence of time and study, I would suggest that we not look at these line items this evening. That's only a suggestion. Thank you.
My comment, okay, is, and I know this is not the popular comment, and I've got a room full of people that are not going to find this a popular comment. I have strong feelings about the loss of the 9 officers. I know that not one single officer in this room does not perform their duties to the highest of their ability, including the new officers. I have a respect for the new officers because I know even the officers that have been here for a long time probably at one time did not start out as a police officer like these gentlemen did. They started off in business, they went through college, they went through the service, they did the things that they needed to do either to start their young lives or to start a young family. And when the calling came and the police put out for the civil service examination, they took their civil service examination, they came through with the highest amount for their class, they qualified, they went through training, and they gave up the other life that they had started to form in order to set their dedication to the city of Fitchburg. At this point, I know everybody is deserving of every penny that they get within their job function, but I find it unfortunate that we're losing some officers in this room because of salary increases. I know that everybody deserves every penny that they get, and I don't want to take that away from anybody. This city is in a very tight fiscal crisis right now. And if you quote the State Department of Revenue, I guess if I'm going to quote it, I might as well quote it directly. The city has signed collective bargaining agreements which may cause further stress in the city's ability to provide level services while simultaneously meeting its statutory requirements for a balanced budget. And that's the quote from the Department of Revenue. So I have the utmost respect for everybody that's in this room. I have the utmost respect for unions and their ability to negotiate. But I also have the utmost respect for trying to keep these 9 police officers on the force. And that's the main reason why we are doing a lot of the actions that we're doing as a city council this year. That's all I have to say. Anything else? Councilor Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Chief of Captains, can you tell us what the cost for each individual of the 9 officers, the average cost of those, they're the lowest paid officers, correct? Can you tell us what the average cost individually would be per officer?
Roughly about 55,000, 52.
Just, obviously, we do not have the authority to restore or increase anything. I believe, to concur with Councilor Connery and the President said, that it was our intent to freeze all raises as well as all associated benefits. I just want to make sure that when we're talking about raises, that each councilor and each officer and everybody here understands that we're also talking about benefits while we're in this precarious financial position. And the other thing we want to keep emphasizing is if the mayor didn't make the cuts, we're attempting to make the cuts. If we don't make the cuts and the city's budget is not balanced, if the state comes in, it wipes out every contract that's been negotiated or even contracts that are signed and negotiated. So what we're trying to do is keep it so that we, as councilors and the mayor, have a say in negotiations. We've got problems, and we may have problems for a while. But if the state comes in, there'll still be 11 councilors and a mayor here, but they won't have any say to any of the negotiations. We just want to get that so that everybody understands that if we don't balance it and the state comes in, nobody here has a say. Thank you.
Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President, Chief, and Captains. How much has the city, in terms of dollars, already invested in these 9 officers who could possibly get laid off?
As of date, they started September 11th was the date of the academy. From that date, we have paid them approximately $108,000 to date, roughly.
That's for the 6.
That's for the 6.
That's just for the salary. That doesn't include the 1 year of prep time that goes into screening these people, the amount of time that goes in through staff services to make sure things are done from all types of psychological, all types of screenings. They come on, they go through a very intense field training program. They're under the supervision of senior officers for, could be anywhere from 2 to 6 months. If you add in the salaries of those officers that it takes to train these people, I think you could very comfortably almost double that figure to 6 people.
So the 10 months, the 6 were 28,960 each, not including the benefits. So,
It's a very lucrative financial situation for other departments. I've had calls from 4 departments so far looking for these offices. Because for them, it's easy money.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Captain.
Counselor Cruz.
I'm going to go right to a couple suggestions anyway, and actually a couple questions here. Thank you, Council President. To the chief, I'd like to know what, I'm looking at your contract from last year, the 06-07 ending. And under one of your articles, it lists under Section 4, the reduction for Section 3. And it goes into and saying, in case of necessary reductions in force, all civilian dispatchers will be the first to be laid off. Can you explain to me why we're losing as many officers when under your own contract it says this writing is in there?
I would decline to answer that. We're currently in impact bargaining over those issues.
Impact, but correct me if I'm wrong, you have your union, and then the dispatchers are part of another local union. So what affiliation are there? I mean, they don't come off of your, you have no really affiliation per se in that they are separate unions altogether, am I correct?
They are separate unions.
Okay. Can you, and again, I understand you said you would not want to comment on that, and I'm not sure how the rest of my fellow council members feel about it, but I would much rather see the dispatchers go, myself, so that we could minimize the amount of layoffs that are occurring in the police department because of such a high, you know, we want to try to maintain the safety of all citizens in the city of Fitchburg. And by doing so, I mean, we're looking at just under $400,000 if we were to lay off the civilian dispatchers. And I'm going to take it a step further. If we were to cut the police vehicles that you're looking for at $125,000, that frees up almost $525,000. Questioning a couple of different positions you have here, that being, I understand you've got you have a liaison position here. You have a civilian, let's see where I see that. You have let me see if I can find it here. Sergeant Community Liaison, and you've got a couple of civilian positions here for, I apologize, I thought I had marked it down. Civilian dispatchers. It had something to do with your computers. Crime analysis, that's what it was. Crime analysis and Tri-City Project Manager. At another 39,800 and 41,656. Your listing, you have a systems manager, and I believe that was the line I'm looking at. Oh, systems manager civilian at 60,709. How much of a how detrimental is this to have this here? And is there any way to? I know we can only make recommendations or suggestions. That's it. But I'm trying to minimize the amount of layoffs within the department itself. And when I say the department, I'm talking about police officers themselves. And I also see that you've got a civilian police dispatchers account, and I'm just writing my notes down, and your system analysis person here. You tell me?
I think, with all due respect, Counsel, I think you've asked me about 10 questions at once.
Okay. I'll take a step back
I'm more than
then.
happy to answer them in a systemic
All right.
way.
But I understand you've already contracted your negotiations. Let's go to civilian dispatchers. Your men are currently, or had in the past, been able to answer the phones. Am I correct?
Men and women.
I'm sorry, your men and women, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, they have done this job in the past.
Okay.
The historical content of this particular type of job, and I'm just going to go very briefly on this, because this has been the subject of hundreds of hours of negotiations, all right?
I understand.
But what happened historically, like when I came on the job in 1980, the new person in the door would work on the desk, okay? And they would answer the calls. And they would be, you could call it training, but it was really learn as you go type of a situation. We didn't even record calls in those days. And usually it would be police officers coming in who were brand new, really ready to go, and they'd end up, some of them working a year, 2 year in-house. So right away, I think it was putting a lot of officers in a situation they didn't want to be in, number one. Number two, and this is jumping ahead, but dispatching today is not what it was 25 years ago. Even today, now, we have a new system under a new software vendor called IMC. And the system that the last officers used in terms of when some of them did actually work inside is not even the same system. It's a totally different system. And the requirements to train and staff that to get it up and running is at minimum a 6-month project. So you can't go from July 1 or June 30th to July 1 and say, we're going to put 6 people in there and we're going to let 6 people go. It just would not work. It wouldn't be safe to do it that way. You want to comment on that at all, Captain Tasker? Captain Tasker really has, he's been the supervisor of that whole division for a long period of time and really has a very in-depth knowledge.
Well, Councilor Cruz, Chief Cronin has covered the topic very well. Probably the only thing I can think of adding is that there are certifications that must take place, they're mandatory, they're required. Those are things that we never had to do before, so it's more than just filling that seat. There is an awful lot of training, as the Chief said, up to 6 months. And then there are state certifications with regard to the E911 system that must take place. All of this makes for a very complicated process. It could be done, it would take a lot of time.
I guess
That's why I said it's an impact bargaining issue. It is being discussed.
I say that only because of the fact that I know in today's technology, your systems that you have in your cruisers, I would imagine, have to be compatible with you have at in your police station, and very similar to it. So my thought is the training shouldn't be as intense as you're saying it should be. I mean, they're on a computer. There's a laptop there. What's on your screen over there has to be compatible with on their computer screens in their vehicles. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know this business. So the only thing that I can see as maybe being an issue might be a 911 certification, per se, which that I understand could take a couple weeks. Am I correct by saying so? I mean,
It's a lot more complex than that. What and again, I haven't worked with laptops in a long time, but the laptops primarily in the field have some very basic functions that the officers use. As a matter of fact, one of the thoughts about when they brought laptops into policing that, okay, they were going to do the reports in the car. Well, it's an economic nightmare to do a report in a Ford LTD like this. I mean, you'll end up with carpal tunnel. So the officers in reality can basically do short reports at the most, and then they come in. And then the modules that they do use in the car are pretty basic communication type modules. The IMC dispatch, and you can help me with this if you want, is a very complex system. All right, with the administrative system, it's not rocket science in terms of getting up to speed and learning how to use it, but it's very time intensive to learn how to use it. And when you're dealing with the call volume of 41,000 calls, and you compare that to our sister city of Leominster, the same size, that does maybe half the calls we do, and you're going to just take out all those professionally trained people and put in people that have been trained, that makes me very uncomfortable. And as I said in the beginning, we're impact bargaining. Everything's on the table.
Okay.
But my job as putting this budget is to put together the best team that fields, that goes out and does the best job. Okay, and the rest of it is, I guess it's fair game. It's impact bargaining.
now, in reference to you're saying 9 police officers you potentially could lose. How many civilian dispatchers are we going to lose? Or are we
Two
going to lose?
budgeted positions that we had last year are not going to be filled this year. We're not losing any bodies. Another thing you should be aware of, good, bad, or indifferent, it's a fact and a reality that the overtime costs in dispatch when we have just 10 people are very high. All right? So if we were to replace that with police officers, it's going to be even higher. Because these officers are entitled to time off just like the police dispatchers, but you're going to be paying them at a much higher rate. And again, it's all on the table. And I do agree with the fact that we have a huge amount of money invested in these people. And we have to look at all options.
Okay. So And again, bear in mind, I'm looking out for what's in the best interest of the general public, and
So am I.
you're saying we lose 2 dispatchers and we're going to lose 9 officers. To me, in my eyes, it just doesn't sound right. So, I mean, I'm not sure how the rest of the council members feel about it, but I'm having a difficult time with the, first of all, I'm going to go to your contract negotiation. I'm sure the writing is very similar to the new one that you are working on currently, but I do have an issue with these other unions and the amount of money that we're actually spending there, because when you look at, and I'm going to take a step back, because you said we're roughly looking at $400,000 in civilian dispatches, another 125 per se, and the cruisers. I'm thinking and then your overtime. You're saying it is very high. So I haven't even looked at your line item. I mean, I have looked at it, but you're saying most of your overtime is going to your dispatchers anyway?
No, I didn't say that. I said the overtime in dispatch is high.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
So, but I didn't see a line item here for dispatchers
It's all lumped in
overtime.
together, the overtime. We don't separate it in
Okay.
terms of how much is going there. You know, we can report that out at any time, but as a rule, we don't. We use one particular overtime line item. And that would include even for, say, the mechanic comes in on overtime.
I see.
See what I'm saying?
I do. And for the sake of percentages, what would you say the dispatcher is getting of your overtime allowances? If we had to figure it, just ballpark. But you could.
I think that's a very slippery slope, because there's a lot of overtime that goes out in the police department that's not included in that budget. That comes out of grants. Okay, so that would be a slippery slope to try to say I knew exactly how much it was. But I'd say, you have a guesstimate on that?
Get the report on a monthly basis. Come on, give us an idea.
Could approach a third of our overtime budget.
Thank you.
I would say, looking at the overtime through the grants, it might be, I think it might be a little bit lower than that.
But you understand my reason for asking, because I'm thinking there's $580,000 that I can see that potentially could be cut here, which, if you base the salaries on what you said, which was roughly, I want to say, let's see here, I think it was 40,000, or was that correct, or per police officers? Or 52 a year, I'm sorry. So if I was to eliminate that position per se and allow the cruisers, we're at 580,000, that would save 4 police officers' position. No, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be 9 positions that we potentially could save, and still have reductions. So you understand why I'm going this route, and I'm not sure how my fellow councilors feel about that, but I granted, I mean, I'm not saying that we don't want to see new cruisers out there. I believe that they're only, if memory serves me correct, we were told that they last about 3 years. I know that, or give or take, roughly. I'm just going to pull that number. I think that's the number that I could be mistaken, but that's the number I remember hearing. I'd like to see where we'd be at in 6 months from now to see if we can implement or get some funding for that. Or for that matter, I understand you might have one captain that writes grants currently, or do all 3 write grants?
There's no money available for grants for that, except maybe, you could maybe get 1 car, possibly, okay? But there is no pot of gold. The grants, that's one of the major reasons why the city, and it's particularly the police department, is in the dire straits that they are. We go back to the 90s when the cops funded was coming out to the Clinton administration. This department was getting big amount of money through the cops grants and hiring, through the local law enforcement block grants, which I think were up over $250,000 a year at one time. Those are all amounting to the amount of 0 today, nothing. Cruisers were bought religiously with the grants that Captain Looney wrote over the years. And this was all through federal funding. Federal funding has disappeared, which is really, I mean, when we talk about grants, we're talking about a decade ago. Those opportunities are not there anymore.
And does that apply to all grants in general? Are you saying it applies to all grants pretty much?
Well, on the federal level, extremely difficult to get any type of grants because the COPS office, actually in the current federal budget, is being eliminated completely. And now there's been some movement with the Democrats to bring that program back. I don't want to talk about politics, but the reality of the situation is we had some great federal funding here for 10 years. and it worked.
Okay.
You know, we really had some good stuff that we could put out, but now the funds are gone, and the city has to collapse on itself and eat its own resources in order to put out those basic services.
I see.
To give you an idea, we had out in grants $4 million. We absorbed all that over the years. 16 personnel we absorbed. We were buying 30 cars at one point. Now it's all in the city budget. That's the deal you made when you hired them back in the 90s, that you absorbed them at the end of the 3-year period. We did that, and the increase has just gotten larger. $4 million, that's what it was.
Okay.
And we don't have grants like that anymore.
All right, thank you. I'd like to hear from the other fellow councilors as to how they feel about that particular position that I had mentioned earlier, that being the dispatchers, before I put any motion on the table. Thank you, Council President.
Councilor Boisvert?
Thank you. Something a little more simple. First of all, gentlemen, thank you very much for everything you do for this city. You do a fine job.
Ladies.
Appreciate you. Appreciate everything you do. Chief, I'd like to touch on the safe driver incentive. Is that a contractual agreement?
Yes.
And that incentive is for what exactly? I've always wondered. If you don't crash a car, you get paid, or what?
Basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Connery?
I think, councilors, I may be wrong, but I think we're moving kind of away from a focal point on this police department budget. First of all, I respect the chiefs and the chief and his commanding officers for their answer on the layoffs regarding dispatchers versus officers. As he said, this is an impact bargaining issue. We shouldn't be entertaining legal questions about impact bargaining at this point. I don't think anybody on this council has got a law degree, and basically, we need to leave that in the hands of the chief and his commanders to review that. I think we need to swing back into the line items on this budget now. We're going to be here all night. I'm not saying that we should just push everything away and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. But we need to get back to basics on this police department budget. Thank you.
Seeing that, I got my own name down next. $425,000 on overtime. You say a third of that is...
Prior to the increase, President, I do have a clear recollection with a lower overall line item for overtime in the $300,000 range. I do recall a 90-some-odd $1,000 in overtime just for dispatch out of that particular fiscal year. It could have been a year or two ago.
Can you tell me how much the top dispatcher made this past year with overtime?
In the neighborhood of 70,000.
Okay. Line item on-call stipend, BCI, is that $21,000 something that is a recent negotiation, or is that, can you explain the additional $21,000 on on-call stipend?
Yes. It is not contractual in as much as that it has not been, is not part of a entered into agreement that has been signed and approved by your council. It is part of a memorandum of understanding between the police union and the mayor.
Is that the same with the senior officer stipend, $21,000?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Question on page 2, and now this is just priorities, and you guys have you and the police department have your priorities set for yourself, so that whatever's more important to you, I guess I'll have to understand. But system manager civilian, at $60,000. Is that system manager the one that keeps your computers running, or?
If I could respond to that, and, I think Councilor Cruz asked some fair questions earlier, we will get to about that too, to explain it, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when you look at this budget. Let me just go through those 3 positions.
The next 3 positions?
We have a systems manager that's been here for quite a period of time. That particular position, and Captain Taskett can speak to it in more depth, but basically is in charge of IT, information technology within the police department. He's worked for the department for a number of years, and his particular salary, where it stands right now, is really exactly probably where it should stand. It's he's in a union, he's in a particular matrix that's not exaggerated, in my opinion. And he's been with the department for quite a few years, and that's his particular job, okay? I want to jump down then to the Tri-City Project Manager, okay? And one of the things that, this is probably one of the most misunderstood positions. This is a grant-funded position. And it's funded for the next 1.5 years under the grant that we got under a technology grant. And the position involves with sharing data with, now it's up to 8 departments that we're sharing data with, where these officers can actually be in their cars and pull records out from Lumsden, Gardner. Just a huge increase in officer safety to be able to get information like that, number one. But the capacity for the intelligence sharing and what it's generated, we're just scratching the surface on it. It's the wave of the future. Especially I'm kind of a dinosaur in this particular field, but my younger officers are growing up with this technology, so they're taking to it very, very well. So she manages that project, and what she also does as a collateral duty for us is she really works on putting out our bulletin every day. And I'm not going to release any copies of it here today, but I just want to give you a long-distance view of what that kind of a document looks like. I think I have one here, so you can understand, maybe in a little bit more depth, the type of work that's put out every day, okay? And it isn't important that you read this thing, but these are main events that happen during the course of the day. They're reported on. There are pictures of people in here that are arrested, charges. There are hot cases that are going on. There's information this information is being relayed to many different departments and agencies throughout the North County. We have a list of other things here that are ongoing, people that have been released, people that are dangerous in the community. And here we have a breakdown of all the incidences or hot spots that the officers on the street are currently addressing. One particular bulletin I looked at recently had, in the 6 sectors in the city, we had 30 locations where active drug dealing was going on. That didn't count the investigations that we were doing by the drug unit, okay? So what I'm trying to say is that it's rolling out an intensive workload that these people are doing. And the crime analysis piece comes in to help them focus better on what it is they need to be addressing. And we've had extremely positive feedback from the rank and file on being able to get information to them like this in a compacted, intelligent way so that they can respond to the needs. And I really honestly feel that that's one of the reasons I think we're at a point now where losing people now is probably a worst possible time. We're in a position right now where I would take this data sharing information package and I would say, I would challenge anybody in New England to offer up a program like this that we're doing in the Fitchburg Police Department. And ladies and gentlemen, look around and look at the diversity of the officers that are in this room. You see that in other places? This diversity represents what this city is all about. These captains that are at my side have probably 75 to 100 years between them, and they've built up this department to get to that point. And the technology that's built here is a result of a lot of the work that's been laid before I even got here. All right? One last thing is we currently have an impact player list. Again, I'll just show you very briefly. We've categorized the 20 most dangerous people in the city, and we're going after them. We've been able to do that through statistical analysis and also through input and getting people on board to better use our resources. We're partnering with the DA's office right now. We're indicting people directly. Just indicted Omar Concepcion today, involved in the shooting of a cab driver 2 weeks ago, was indicted today by the grand jury, went right in, went right by the district court. And we're doing this through sharing information with the DA's office on a real time. So we're taking these people out, we'll keep doing it. So I didn't mean to go off the track a little bit, but I think it's important to understand the context of what this all means. Thank you.
So at no given time are any of the city councilors in this room showing up on those photographs, right? So the $150,000 between system manager, crime analyst, and Tri-City project manager, those are all civilian positions?
Right, and the last one I didn't touch on was the analyst, okay? It's kind of a very, this is probably one of the biggest bargains that the city has right now, okay? Last year, I think our crime analyst that we hired as an intern originally was paid $32,000. I believe he has a master's degree in computer science. And I believe, I don't remember the last time anybody has asked him in the police department to fix something, network it, or get it done when he hasn't been able to do it. He's incredible. To the point where the mayor wants to rate him and use him in the other departments. And he did want to bump him up because you're talking a guy here that may probably be worth $80,000 to $100,000 on the outside. All right, now I understand the city's fiscal situation.
Biggest bargain that we have right now is the 9 police officers that you're laying off. Okay, they're the biggest bargain at $50,000. Animal control officer, the elimination of the animal control officer, is there a statute that says a city of this size needs to have an animal control officer? Either through the Board of Health or through the, I know it was a Board of Health position, it's been moved over to the police department. Was it moved over to the police department so it could be eliminated, or is there a need? I just can't see it. With all of the problems that I know that I receive as a counselor, animal control is kind of high up on the list.
Mayor of each city, the Board of Selectmen of each town, so annually on May 1st designate one or more dog officers who may be police officers or constables and who, except as herein provided, shall hold office for 1 year until the successors are qualified.
And that's a Mass General law?
Chapter 140, 151.
So again, we'll be breaking,
No. No, a police officer can do it. I did it.
is that the plan? Are you going to swear in an officer as the animal control officer?
No, the plan
May
needs
1st?
to be implemented by the mayor. In my opinion, the dog officer position does not belong in the police department. It was given to me as a political takeoff when I took the job. Here it is. It's your first day of work, you now have the dog officer. I have to watch an operations commander spend an inordinate amount of time worrying about things like autopsies on dogs, listening to adoption reviews and things of that nature. In a city of this size and with our problem, it does not belong in the police department. And that's why I cut it out of the budget.
Okay, so that was your choice and not the mayor's choice?
The mayor originally suggested it, and then I thought it was a great idea, so I followed up.
But by statute, somewhere in this city, on July 1st, we have to have a dog officer by law.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Conry.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Mr. President, because I had visited the city clerk's office, and at last count, our esteemed city clerk told me we had 1,488 registered dogs in Fitchburg. If we have 1,488 registered dogs in Fitchburg, how many do you think do not have licenses? And to cut this position is insane. However, I don't believe it belongs in the police department. It has to be in some other department. I don't want to see Archie picking up a dead skunk at 3 o'clock in the morning and stinking up his cruiser. I think we need to take a hard look at this animal control officers and find out where we're going to place it. But I personally don't believe it's a police department function. They've got plenty to do in this city without chasing dogs around. And I make one other comment. We have one counselor in this chamber who's been attacked by a pit bull. How many people have been attacked by pit bulls in this city this year? It's not a policeman's job. Policeman's job is to fight crime. And I think we need to prevail upon the mayor to find a place to put this animal control officer. We do need one in Fitchburg, but we don't need one in the police department. Thank you.
So to the best of your knowledge, is there funding anywhere else in this budget for a police officer, for a dog officer?
No, there isn't.
Okay. But you don't, it doesn't show up in public health or anything like that, Board of Health or anything?
I strongly encourage the Board of Health to fund it.
Wait until Jeff's
Going to love you.
predecessor comes out.
Going to love you.
Let him drop on his lap day
No,
one.
seriously, it is a, in my opinion, it is a
Health issue.
extremely important position to the city of Fitchburg. I totally agree with that. But on the other hand, if you knew the contention that that position brings in any department that it goes, we make arrests all day long and we don't get calls, but you pick up somebody's dog and you may as well have, taken the Lindbergh baby. It turns into a big rigmarole. And again, that's all distracting into the crime mission that we have. I like animals, and I think that animals need to be regulated, but I don't think in a city our size that we have, it should be done through the police department.
Mr. Chairman, just to give you an idea, because Council Conrad brought it up, maybe 1,000 animals licensed in the city, but unrestrained dogs, that would be the unlicensed dog running around. There are 203 complaints. That came out to, dogs were 167 of them, cats and kittens were 33. We had a pigeon and a guinea pig. When you're looking at $45,000 for 100 years police experience, that was an easy one.
Guinea pig.
Councilor Cruz,
Annual report.
did you have your hand up?
I am ready to make my cuts.
Councilor DeSalvatore.
Chief, I see that you've got $125,000 allocated for 10 new cruisers. When was the last time the department was allowed to purchase any new cruisers?
2 years ago.
2 years ago? How many?
No.
Well, we did, yeah, we purchased one for a supervisor, but for the fleet cars, the regular fleet cars was 2 years ago.
See, I had thought that there was a...
Not that I want to cut this conversation short, but we're on page 44.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd love to start the
Well,
conversation.
I
earlier.
was going to get to a point, and
Okay.
let me get to the point then first.
Okay.
Looking through this, I see mostly level funding. But I also see some loss from last year where it looks like you may end up being, crying for some extra funding sometime through the year. Have you, I don't see an awful lot added to heating fuel. There's a number of line items that have been reduced, not drastically, but still reduced. I don't see any wiggle room with the exception of cruisers, and we couldn't possibly if we haven't been buying them in so many years. And I was going to suggest to my fellow councilors that we tread very lightly on this budget because it is very complex. Somebody's taken an awful lot of time putting it together, and I think it is beyond what I would prefer to tear apart in an evening. Thank you.
Councilor Clark?
I'm going to wait till the next page, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Boisvert?
Thank you. I have looked through this entire document for the budget for the police department, and in light of the fact that we are losing, did you say 9 officers? Is it 9?
That's what the reduction is
Yeah.
in this proposed budget.
I would say that any further reductions in this budget would basically handcuff the wrong people. I don't believe in touching this budget at all. Thank you.
Counselor DiMartino.
Chief, I'm going back to the cars also. You got 1 car last year and 1 dog officer wagon, and that was a very expensive one. Is there any chance you could trade that in and get a car for it?
No.
No.
I think, in my opinion, for the best benefit of the city of Fitchburg, when the dog officer's position goes over to the Board of Health, they're going to need a truck.
Please God, please
Yeah,
God.
he will. And I don't think it was a Cadillac truck. It was a very basic stripped-down type model. And I also think that, when you have to go out and you have to buy the accessories that go with it, it might have come in somewhere around $24,000. And then with the depreciation that you get on a vehicle after a year, you're probably down to something like that, like $50,000. So, I don't think it would really pay the city to do that.
Yes,
They're still going to have a truck.
Yeah, it's penny wise and dollar foolish, in other words.
Well, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Counselor Connery.
I have to agree with Councilor Bovet that this is a very tight budget. And I hope that we can save those police officers that we put on this year. However, I'm looking at the travel and meetings line for $6,000.
Are we still on the
Still,
payroll?
you're still on the payroll. Okay, I'll get to that
I'd love to get to
then.
page 45, believe me. Anything else on page 44? And my only other comment or question to you, Chief, is on the total for the bottom page, it said the amount requested was $7,096,120, which just happens to match the amount that was allowed by the mayor. Can you actually tell me what the amount requested was by the chief?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it wasn't exactly what was granted.
$7,842,320.
Can you make sure in future budgets, when you put your name on the bottom, that it's what you requested and not what the mayor told, what the mayor said we were going to get? Because we'd like to know what your other priorities are as well. Because I'm sure you had more priorities built into that other $800,000. Page 45, police equipment and repairs. Amount requested, $329,100. Amount allowed by the mayor, $329,100. Councilor DeSalvatore.
Just for information, I'd like to know what the original request was on that line, as a total request for this page.
$485,900.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Connery?
We can't let you go unscathed, Chief. I'm concerned about the travel and meetings, $6,000. We've taken a hard look at other departments on that. However, I will yield to the chief to talk about that line.
Which one now, the travel meeting?
Travel and meetings, 6,000, yes, sir.
And I'm going to refer to, talk a little bit about some of the funding that comes out of the capital money.
We presently, on the police department, have a training budget, as you know, as you can see. And that results in over 12,197 hours of training through such things as a municipal police training program, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mass State Police, Homeland Security, FBI, DEA, our own instructors,
And these programs aren't run in the city of Fitchburg. I mean, we just, sometimes we're traveling overnight. We'll send 1 or 2 officers to a program. We pay for whatever expenses that we may incur out of that. That's not a huge amount of money. All this addresses the issues of liability. If we can't do this, we'll be negligent in our attempts at training, hiring, and so on and so forth. It's a small amount of money for an insurance policy. To give you an example, just recently we went through a civil litigation where they were demanding $7 million from the city. And we survived that in federal court. The first thing they asked for is training documents. And we literally bury them in training documents. And that negligent training issue goes away. So for short money, you're saving potentially millions.
Is there anybody in-house that's certified to do any training that would cover this?
No, this is in addition to, but we do a lot of insurance training. Matter of fact, I just did training in firearms myself today. We have a person that does that. But again, to build on a little bit what Captain Looney's talking about, and I don't have a point-by-point expenditure on each particular dollar that went out here, but just to give you an example, one day when we were talking, I asked Captain Looney to bring in the litigation papers that we currently have pending. And the stack was about this high. The reality is that police officers are punching bags for people that want to go out and file a lawsuit. All right, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's the way it is. And the only defense that the city and these individual police officers have is their training certificates when the time comes. All right? And that doesn't even get into the fact, there's just basic trainings that we have to cover out of this. And then we also have to be looking progressively down the road. What is it that we need to be giving to add on? You know, right now, look at what's happened in the last 5 or 10 years just in technology. We got all types of trainings we have to send people to for cybercrime now. You read in the paper every day, you know, credit card fraud, all this stuff. You know, we're doing cases now that you have to work with people in Los Angeles. So it's, in my opinion, it's very, very short money. And matter of fact, this money has been cut down significantly since I've been here. So, and it doesn't represent a figure that's been in here historically. It's actually been reduced.
I rest my case.
It's just a comment from our colleague, Councilor Caddy, in a discussion that we had recently about the training facility in West Boylston, is it? The
Boylston, Mass.
Boylston, Mass, where several of your officers and staff are trainers in that department, in that area, and taking some of those courses and moving them in-house, and possibly doing in-house training that would save money, and then possibly doing courses in Fitchburg that would generate revenues. Is there anything that could be done in the city of Fitchburg to help generate revenues through training?
Well, the answer to the questions are yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, we do have trainings when they're practical to have them in Fitchburg. You know, Sergeant Jackson just asked me recently to do a police bike training course here. The turning a profit on something like that it doesn't work that way. If anything, what they usually do is, whoever the trainers are, is they will give us a free slot, or maybe 3 free slots, and then that will save us, like we won't have to pay the $300 maybe.
Okay.
And that's pretty rare. It may happen once or twice a year at the most.
Okay, just to...
We just did it last month. The FBI came in, we did a fingerprint program. I think we had 2 officers in it, a basic fingerprinting course, but we had another 12, so that didn't cost us. So we do that. And the Municipal Police Training Council over there in West Boylston, we commonly don't pay for that. That's provided by the state. A lot of this is specialized training that no one else provides. We have to go to Homeland Security, FBI, DEA, things of that nature.
In parentheses, on the police vehicle replacement, there's a 10, but how many cars are you actually anticipating for 120,000? 5.
That line item was originally $250,000.
Councilor DiMartino.
Out of the 9 police officers, are any of those retirements?
We have 9 police officers. I guess if I understand the question correctly, Is anybody retiring to save those officers?
In those 9?
We have potentially one officer leaving in January and maybe a sergeant leaving in January. But again, and we've already actually factored those into our budget.
Okay.
But the reality is, they may not go. So,
Okay, thank you.
and they're both excellent officers, and quite frankly, I don't want to see them leave.
Okay.
They're excellent.
Councilor Cruz?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to make a motion for the, well, first of all, I'd like to explain that $527,385 current for reductions.
Could you just bring your, when you talk, I can't hear.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're at $527,385 for reductions. We're a far cry off from where we are, and everyone's taking a cut here. I just want to remind my fellow councilors. I'm hoping that some of you will feel the same way I do. There has to be some cuts in everywhere. We don't want to make them. I don't want to see anyone suffer, and I definitely will not see a police officer be laid off if I have it my way, or be lost for that matter. But I do want to remind the council that we do need to make some cuts. I'd like to visit the police vehicle, and I want to put this in a motion. Police vehicle replacement line item for $125,000 be cut, and hope that we can relook at this or revisit this in next year's budget, and hopefully by then we'll have implemented something to encourage some new revenues. So I would ask my fellow councilors to consider that. It has been 2 years since we initially, and I want to say it was 5 vehicles we did put in line. It's a year out. I'm hoping that we do get the opportunity to bring some new revenues to the city and revisit this at a later date. Thank you, Council President.
Was there a motion?
That was in the form of a motion, yes.
And what was the,
To cut the $125,000 for police vehicle replacement.
By what?
To cut the line item for $125,000 on police vehicles.
Totally.
Totally.
I'll second that.
motion has been made and seconded to take police vehicle replacement $125,000 and reduce that number to 0. Any discussion? Councilor Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the 8th budget that I've discussed, and what we have, and what's been discussed in the past, this is a pendulum. One year we get 10, one year we get 0. A few years ago, the cruisers were put onto a package for heavy equipment. The loan was for 5 years, and we are told that the cruisers last approximately 2. It doesn't sound like good financing, good business practice, or good in any way to finance something that we're going to be paying on. Cruisers are gone out of the system, and we're still paying. I don't understand why we can't get into something where we get 5 a year. I picked that number a few years ago. Few people listened, but it just, we either have a new fleet or an old fleet. We never have a fleet that's being continually replenished on a normal annual basis. I just can't see cutting them all out, but I can't see buying 10 either. I know we're in fiscal constraint, but I'd like to find a system. Maybe this is the wrong year to do it. I'd be willing to cut them out, but that's not my intent. My intent would be to get a system where the mayor and the council agree to get 5 a year.
This is 5.
Pardon me?
This is for 5.
This is for 5.
This $125,000 is for 5.
That was a mistake, Counselor, the typo said.
Okay, I didn't hear, but on the 10 was, the 10 number was wrong?
Yes, sir.
Oh, somebody did listen. Thank you.
And I just want to echo Councilor Donnelly's sentiments. When we did go out for a loan a couple of years ago and there was cruisers on that, I thought that was just wrong thing to do because if we can't be funding the police vehicles out of the city budget, where I think it's the right place to do on a continual basis at some number that may be determined, if 5 is the number, then 5 is the number. I think we have 5 wards or 5 routes, or is there 6 routes?
It's actually 6.
There's 6 routes in the city. They're asking for 5 cruisers. I'm sure some of these aren't going to be actual cruisers, but used in other areas.
They're all going to be frontline cars.
So,
They have to be.
to me, you know, I think that, as Councilor Donnelly said, I think somebody finally listened and we're doing it the right way, so I think to cut it out would be the wrong way. Counselor DeSalvatore?
This number's already been cut down from 10 vehicles to 5. We had authorized some purchases over the summer, but that never took place except for, I think, 1 vehicle, right?
Yes.
At that time, the argument was we're long overdue, and it's for the safety of those that are driving those vehicles that we need new vehicles now. I won't be able to vote for that. Thank you.
Counselor Tran?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, you clarified my point, so thank you. On the number, I concur with Councilor Donnelly that we should have some kind of purchasing plan in place to replace 5 vehicles every year. I have 3 questions for the chief. The first one is, can we delay this purchase until next year? Second, the conditions of the current vehicles. And third, are any officers walking without vehicles?
First question was, I just was thinking of these questions, I forgot that respond.
Can we delay the purchase until next year?
My position would be, we have to buy them done. The cars right now that we currently have, the best ones we have are in the high 60s, they're getting almost to 70,000 miles. You know, it's easy to go back to ordinance. We have a city ordinance that says that we should be turning them over at 50,000. So that's a baseline to start thinking about where we go with these things, okay? The next piece is, you know, they're really at the point now where they're going to start falling apart if we don't replace them. And it's going to end up costing us money to keep a fleet that's going to be, quite frankly, it's going to be dangerous for the officers to drive these things if they keep going at the way they deteriorate. And as an administrator, I think now is the time that we really need to do the budget purchase and do it now. I don't see, in my experience, since I've been back here, any money available to buy cruises down the road here for a while, outside of the budget period when it happens. I think it's, you know, in other situations, it might be prudent to put that off, and I even thought of that, and we had that discussion. We discussed it very intently, and we really came up with the sound decision that I think was, no matter what happens, we've got to get the cruises. We have to get them, because that's what makes us work. Do we have people out there walking? Yes. We have all kinds of walking routes out there now. They're very productive. People like them. You know, the people that we have and the new officers that we have allowed us to do it even more than we've ever done it. We put officers out there walking on overtime all the time. So yes, we do put officers out there quite a bit on foot. But we have 6 districts, and Fitchburg is a fairly good-sized city, and you have to have cars. You know, you can even come into the police station and look at the pictures in the 1920s, and you're going to see cars. It's always, you know, we have 40,000 calls for service, and the officers have to be mobile in order to go to people's houses. So,
What's the oldest age of our vehicles?
The oldest?
Oldest.
Well, we have some vehicles that are 97, but they are part of our unmarked fleet.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest that we have in our marked fleet would be probably 2001s, and we have 2 spares.
So the strain we put the vehicles through, I would imagine that the older the vehicles are, the more maintenance it requires, and that's why the budget for the maintenance is so high. If we have some kind of a replenish program in place, we wouldn't see the account for the maintenance or repair be that high, right?
You're absolutely right. And in fact, I couldn't agree more with both of you gentlemen. And L&D Geronimo, one of your colleagues from years past, saw it the same way, and that's where that 50,000-mile proposal came from. And the reality is this, the line cars are accumulating anywhere from close to 40,000 miles a year to 50,000 miles a year. So pretty simple math. A couple of years and you're going to see close to 100,000 miles in some of these cars. If we did that 5 a year, we'd be able to mix marked vehicles with unmarked vehicles, and we'd be in fine shape. And what happens is, when you see a number like 10, it's because a year went by when we were on the short end of that stick, and now we're trying to catch up. So you're exactly right.
Thank you.
Counselor DiMartino?
The reason that I'm saying this about the cars is not because you don't need the cars, but I was hoping that that would be 2 police officers that we could save. That was my whole point. I mean, and I know the cars are important, but are the police officers not more important? That was the reason I was saying that.
And I agree with that, and we've agonized over that
I
in
know.
our discussions. And, you know, as an administrator, at some point, you have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I also have, you know, there isn't anybody that wants to keep these 9 officers more than me and hasn't sweated enough about it. But on the same hand, I got, you know, 80 other officers that are out there on the roads. They're going to be here no matter what, and they got to have safe working conditions. So it's a decision that I feel like I had to make.
Counselor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't be voting for this motion. It's important that our city officers have the best that we can give them in tools, and the automobile and cars are a very important tool in what these guys do every day. I'm sure that they agonized over it. I'm sure they looked at, you know, if we don't have a couple of cars, we could get a couple of cops back. And I'm sure that, you know, you look at the systems manager position and the crime analyst position, and you're thinking, do I take these or do I take cops? And I'm sure the chief painstakingly went over everything. People can second guess. I'm not going to. I'm not going to touch this budget. I had mentioned in the beginning about how important our police department is. You know, not to blow smoke up anybody's fanny, but to me, this department has to be under budget. It has to be number 1 in our budget, in our minds. Our city's in big trouble if we can't be safe in our homes and our schools. And I wish we had more. We cannot add to this. But if this is what the chief recommends, and he knows his business, and his captains know his business, I'm not going to touch it. Thank you.
Counselor Cruz?
Thank you, Council President. It's a pay me now, pay me back later, folks. Councilors, and I'm saying fellow councilors, because you know what, we don't make any cuts in this thing. We just potentially could have saved 2 police officers' position. Why we don't lease vehicles, I'm sure there's another way to do this. And if we're turning around and spending $125,000 every 2 years on vehicles, I'm sure, okay, that it would be a lot better spent on a lease of some sort if we're turning them over that quickly. If the general laws say that we've got 40,000 miles or 50,000 miles and we're turning them over, I'd rather work at that at a later date and perhaps even appropriate monies through a loan order of some sort to get some sort of a lease agreement established so that we're not revisiting this every 2 or 3 years. And I'd much rather see 2 police officers saved here today, so I'd ask my fellow councilors to consider it. We can always come back, and the chief can come back at a later date, looking for a loan order, or perhaps making some sort of an agreement out there with a leasing company, so that we constantly, as other councilors have stated, will have a fleet vehicle, and we will be able to tow over maybe 2 cars, 3 cars, 5, up to 5 cars per year. It's as simple as that, but to spend this amount of money today, and in 2 years be revisiting it again on another 5, because it'll probably be next year for another 5, because we've got maybe 30, 40 vehicles out there, I'm sure. I'm just saying, let's get our best bang for our buck and look into this a little further. Thank you, Councilor.
Comment on leasing?
Yeah, I couldn't defer it to Captain Tasker, but we've gone down that road, and it's not going to pay financially to do it. We've gone down it extensively. I don't know if you want to speak directly to it, but...
Well, actually, I'm encouraged that you're coming up with the same thoughts and suggestions that we've come up with. Those are exactly the things that we've examined, and I'm sure for the same reasons that you're bringing it up, because we thought at the time it would save us money, and we thought it was another way to do business, and we thought it'd work out, but when we examined it, what you end up doing is just spreading out the payment of that vehicle over the life of the lease. That's all that happens. But then there's even another downside to it. We lose the residual value of the trade. We do get something on a trade, I mean, not a lot. You know, you can't say it was driven just on Sundays by a little old lady. That's not going to work. But we do have some residual value when we own the vehicles and trade them.
And I hope you understand the fact that the way I'm looking at this is a lease agreement. First of all, we're paying for a mechanic for when it breaks down. In a lease agreement, he'd probably doing oil changes only. We're staffing and breakdowns, and I've seen, actually, I was at when Fitchburg Savings Bank got robbed maybe a month or two ago. I happened to be in the same parking lot, and I'm watching a police officer trying to turn over his ignition, and it's dead. It will not turn over. He's got to call now to get someone to jumpstart him. And I'm saying, under the financial crisis that this city has been in and continues to follow, maybe leasing would be the best option.
Well,
Because we're here every year looking for more money, and we're, again, here we are again.
again,
It's
if
lack
you-
of.
I agree with your concept, but again, if you go down that road, I think part of the problem is in your answer. Who are you going to call if you got a lease?
There's absolutely nobody out there with all these leasing companies out there.
Who's open 24 hours a day? See, there are other factors that go into this, you know, that
But why would, I'm sorry, but maybe I'm...
if the car breaks down,
Right.
you have a mechanic.
But we're
own the
hoping
car,
that
You can
if
bring
we're...
him in and get him fixed.
But if
If you're
the...
leasing a vehicle, you can't bring it to Ford Motor Company at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I understand, correct. But the probability of a vehicle breaking down with 34,000 miles, even in this field that it's in currently, is probably a lot less if you did statistically than a vehicle that has 70 to 100,000 miles on it. That being my point.
I don't think, honestly, I don't think that's very accurate at all. These cars.
But I'm trying to keep it simple, that's all.
Take a beating.
But I'm sure you have all the
in normal store,
statistics.
And they break down.
Councilor Connery.
Captain Tasker talked about they're approaching 70,000 miles. Well, the odometer reading really isn't the true reading. It's more than that, isn't it? A vehicle goes on a call, the officer doesn't turn the vehicle off every time he goes on a call, so you've got to add more mileage and more wear and tear onto that engine. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct. As you have alluded to, the idle time alone is something that wears actually considerable with regard to engine, et cetera, and components. So, yes, absolutely. And you know, there's nothing that educates us better than having gone through this in the past. You know, we tried to get 100,000 miles out of some vehicles, once again trying to find the best way to handle vehicles, and we found that was not the best way to handle vehicles. You do end up paying more for costs, and you do have these other components that have worn considerably. Then you're outside the warranty period.
And then, in fiscal year 2007, we spent $40,000 for repairs. These cruisers are going to be a year older, and we level funded the auto repair. I mean, that really doesn't make sense. We're going to spend more money on auto repair. We level funded for tire replacement. These cruisers are going to be older. They're going to be wearing tires. I will vote in favor of 5 new cruisers.
Councilor DeSalvatore.
I'll hold my question until after we're through this. Thank you.
I guess my only other comment would be that the police vehicle that's broken down at a crime scene is all the more reason to vote against your motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Raise of hands. 2. All those opposed? Motion doesn't carry. Moving on to page 45. 46. Police other expenses. Amount requested, $130,200. Amount allowed by the mayor, $130,200.
$197,700 was the original request.
Counselor Cruz.
I have a question reference to line item towing fees. We pay out $5,000 in towing fees currently.
Right.
That's reimbursed to us, or is that just a loss?
Yeah, I think most of it,
Some we get back, some we don't.
just so you'll know, that's not really a very big amount of money. And some of the towing that we've done this year, we took it out of community policing money, which is a small grant that we get, because it is a huge quality of life issue. I think you'll see in the annual report, we towed an astronomical amount of cars last year. I mean, I don't know how many calls I got from the city council alone about abandoned cars. But I think that there has been there are still a lot of cars out there that got to be moved, but the system is working well now. We've towed hundreds of cars. And most of those cars, we're not going to get anything back. And I think it's, what, $90 a whack or something like that?
It is 90,
Yeah.
yes.
So we've actually supplemented this money with other money we could be using for other things.
Thank you.
Counselor DeSalvatore?
I don't know how my fellow counselors feel about what we're seeing tonight, but page after page, we're being told that the requested amount is quite a bit different from what's shown to what's actually sitting here in front of us. And we've already experienced quite a few years of voodoo economics and working with numbers that didn't seem to exist there either. And I'm wondering if we can get an explanation from the mayor as to how it is he's taken the liberty to change the bottom line or any line item in the requested amount. Because I honestly think that this is going against the trust in a number of different ways. And I think that the department heads, whether it be the police department, fire department, or any department whatsoever, if they have a requested amount, that ought to be something in front of us as well. Because we're making cuts based upon a different figure. And it seems a little bit easier to make a cut when you honestly don't have all the facts in front of you. We don't have all the facts in front of us. Again, we don't have all the facts in front of us. We're always making decisions without all the facts in front of us. And I feel very uncomfortable with anything that we're doing when we don't have the facts in front of us now, especially now. So I'm wondering if we can, again, I'm interested to see if my fellow councilors would be interested as well. I'd like to know what the actual amounts were, and if maybe Mr. Saracen has these numbers somewhere, if they could be presented to us on a separate document. But I'd still like an explanation from the mayor as to how it is and what it is he's trying to achieve. I'd like to know what it is he's trying to achieve by changing that number so that we don't know what it is, so that we can't see it ahead of time.
Is that the wishes of the council?
No, I want to speak on what he's saying.
Okay, okay. Counselor Darnley?
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking on the towing fees, if you look in the paper on a daily basis, it used to cost money to tow cars. And I've towed, I can't tell you how many I have towed, but I tow quite a few every year. It used to cost money, but now you can get everything towed for free. They'll tow junk cars, whether they're going to store them and take care of them. I don't understand why the police department must ask for more cars to be towed than any other property owner or business person in the city, unless you're in the car business. I would think you could get everything towed for free. Registered, unregistered, I mean, almost there's some of the tow companies that are on your list right now that will come if I call and they'll tow for free, and they are advertising in the paper. So my question is, you're a volume dealer, you're a preferred customer. I don't think we should be paying. I know there was a limit years ago and a minimum amount, but
Some of the
If-
tolls are unavoidable if they're, like, I think, I don't mean to interrupt you, Counsel, but I think just on one level, that's assuming that the car is taken and going to be crushed. And in some cases, the car is not taken and crushed and has to be given back. So that wouldn't be a free toll for anybody.
Then the owner pays. And the owner pays directly to the person that has possession of the vehicle. I know it's happened to me. Some are registered, some aren't registered, some are actually retrieved. But why do all the paperwork for the middleman? All you do is the paperwork. They're going to retrieve it. The law still stands. I mean, I guess if you can show that the value isn't there, for the value of the tow, they can do it right away. But if it does have value and they have to store it, they build it up to the price where, excuse me, the tow and the storage costs more. And when it reaches that point, if they don't pay for it, to the crusher it goes. But now because of the value of all metals, people are advertising. I really don't think the city should have to pay for the tow. I think it's something you could cut out of your budget.
I think it's something we could look at, definitely.
Thank you.
Councilor Tran?
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, your original numbers for the amount requested, was it your choice not to list them, or do you choose to use the mayor's numbers?
I believe that the way the budget has been printed out this year is consistent with the way it's always been printed out. If my memory serves me right, there isn't anything different here than the way we've done it in the past, is there?
Well, Councilor Tran is correct. Typically, you would see the requested amount and then the amount allowed. All I can tell you is that we were given numbers to come up with, numbers that we had to get to, and that's how this budget was put together, following those records.
I have no problem doing what you said, absolutely. I would defer to Dick. Is this any different this year as it has been in the past?
It can vary from year to year. I think the chief and Captain Tasker kind of captured it properly, and maybe if there was communication on what line item, who's going to put what where, that it might have been shown the amount requested in total, and then the amount allowed by mayor, but maybe that didn't take place. I wasn't involved with those discussions, so.
Well, my feeling is that, Mr. President, it would be nice to have the original numbers from the chief, but it wouldn't make any difference to me. So I would disagree with Councilor DeSalvatore's request. Thank you.
Councilor DiMartino?
I was going to say exactly what Councillor Tran said. It wouldn't make any difference. Makes no difference. This is the mayor's budget. He gave it to us unbalanced, and I have said it from the beginning. We should have handed it back to him the first night. There was only 1 to 10. I still say we should hand it back to him. And it's not balanced. It's not going to be balanced even with our cuts. And I think that we should go right back and just give it back to him, because it's a ridiculous budget. And we're here hurting people's lives, and we're here taking the heat, and he's the one that gave us an unbalanced budget. And I just don't understand why my colleagues didn't go along with me on the first round. But I'll keep asking them. Thank you very much.
Councilor Conry?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a comment to piggyback onto what Councilor DiMartino said. This document right here is not a department head's budget.
No, I know that.
It's the mayor's budget.
That's right.
This budget is the mayor's budget, and this is not a put-down for the police department who's trying to do a job,
Motion to give
or any other department. And I really think the mayor should be here to defend this budget. Thank you.
Councilor DiMartino?
I'm going to make a motion that we give the budget back to him tonight. See? I don't get a second.
Keep trying, Councilor.
I know, I
hope
keep
at the end
trying,
of this, you're
because
going to be the
basically
one
at
that
the
says,
end,
I told you so.
That's what's going to happen. Thank you.
Moving on to page 47, police maintenance of building. Amount requested, $133,700. Amount allowed by mayor, $133,700.
197 odd.
Yeah. Got a number on this, Captain?
Yes, Counselor, I do. This would be a good time. We need to just flip-flop two numbers from the prior page we were on. The correct requested amount is $163,200. And on the maintenance of building, the requested amount was $197,700. Just wanted to correct that.
And what was the biggest difference in that request?
The biggest difference in that request amounts to $70,000, and it came from actually the second year in a row where we had requested for new carpeting and paint on the top floor of the police department, and they're $40,000 and $30,000 respectively.
Councilors? Moving on to page 48, police service contracts. Amount requested, $51,900. Amount allowed by mayor, $51,900.
That's a match.
Councilor Cruz.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to know, are all your copier machines leased?
No, but in this proposed budget, they would be.
And we absolutely, is it a necessity to have every single one of these?
It is.
In your IBM office equipment maintenance?
Yes,
Wouldn't that be eliminated if you had a lease of some sort?
Well, actually, the lease would be, not a lease, but those are for something that's called typewriters. We still have some at the police department, and we rarely use up much of that line item at all, and we have them repaired as necessary, but typically it doesn't take much money to do it. If that line item were to disappear, we could survive.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to IBM office equipment maintenance to make it zero, from 700 to 0.
Motion made to reduce the line item IBM office equipment maintenance from $700 to 0. Well, they even offered to give that one away, and we don't want to take it. That's good.
Mr. President?
Yes. Councilor Clark.
Mr. President, I know that they offered to give that one away, but you know what? They can take that money and use it somewhere else.
It's not much.
Just a question on the difference in the elevator maintenance. Is that a necessary repair or just to keep maintenance?
It's maintenance, actually. You might recall, we had that...
Yeah, elevator problems.
Yes. Well, with the new part came coverage. So there was actually an overlap period, but now we're back on the maintenance plan once again.
Moving on to the next department. Thank you. Yes, Councilor Clark.
President, could I just ask about that last item we were talking about, the elevator? Does that mean that next year, this item will be the same amount? You can look ahead? The elevator one, the $5,000?
5,000?
That'll stay the same next year, too?
Yes, it typically doesn't move much when it does move.
Thank you, Captain.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
If I could, just one last remark. First, I'd like to thank the city council tonight for what I feel was a very fair inquiry into the budget as it was presented to you tonight. I can tell you that, again, it's been grueling. The numbers have been going up and down. It's been a roller coaster ride. Very thankful for the captains who really, especially Captain Task, who put a lot of work into this and thought into this budget and baselined it for us. And Captain Looney and Captain Kearns for sharing their expertise tonight, because I really think, again, you have probably 100 years of experience or more in front of you tonight. And I'm proud to have that forward. But really what I want to end on is the note is the officers in the room. They are a very special group of people, and they do a very, very special job. It's very easy, and I know that I'm not really speaking to the city council because I know you get this, but even to the community at large. They take inordinate amount of risks and pressures of life in the job that they do, and they do it really in a very humble fashion. They don't get a lot of public attention for what they do, but they sure get the criticism if the newspaper doesn't like it. But they do it no matter what. And they come in and they do it, and they do it very, very well. The department has made some tremendous progress over the last few years. I can't say anything more about the professionalism that they show at all levels and at all times, and I'm proud to be chief of this department. Thank you.
And again, I think speaking on behalf of the council, the people that are at that table and the people that support behind you, the men and women that do that job every day are very important to us, very critical to us. And our mission is not just to slash and burn, but to restore as well. And none of us want to see anybody from the police department not coming back next year. It may not be all, it may not be any, that's the mayor's decision in the end, I guess, when we decide what the total budget will be. He makes determination within that what is to be done, but I believe that the majority of this council does not want to see a reduction of 9 in force.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you. Thank you. Motion to take a 5-minute break?
Hey, Charlie.
5-minute recess?
Sure. 5-minute recess.
Madam.
Amount requested, $6,200. Amount allowed, $6,200. Seeing no further questions, we'll... Okay. Yep. Any questions, concerns? Moving on to page 17. License commission expenses, $26.50. Amount allowed by mayor, $26.50. Councilor DeSalvatore.
One quick question. On either of these pages, was the requested amount higher than the actual amount shown here for the amount requested?
No, it was not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on these two pages? No. Thank you very much. Moving on to page 14. The city clerk. City clerk personal services, amount requested $201,996. Amount allowed by mayor, $201,996. Seeing nothing, we'll move on to page 15, city clerk expenses. Amount requested, $13,390. Amount allowed, $12,390.
Didn't that go down a bit?
Councilor Donnelly?
Thank you, Mr. President. Anna, is that adequate amount, or do you need the amount requested?
I requested 3,000 and allowed was 3,000.
That's isn't $1,000 less? 13,390 and 12,390. Am I right?
That is in the, that's the bottom line, that's the total at the bottom. Yeah, he took it out of the document restoration and storage. I requested 3,000 and was approved for 2,000.
Well, you've been requesting that money every year since you've been here.
I have, I did double it this year as a request.
Just want to note it. Thank you.
Councilor DeSalvatore?
Well, the question, I guess, would be, in documents restoration and storage, is that enough to get the job done, what you're being given? Are you going to fall far behind? Is this normal?
We're gradually working on repairing the older books in the vault. I would need tens of thousands of dollars if I were to do it all in one shot. I'm working on the worst
Okay,
ones
so
gradually.
at least this is better than the 1,500 last year, but not as much as you wanted this year. All right, thank you.
Councilor Tran?
Thank you, Mr. President. And in 2006, your office expense was $6,600, a little over $6,600. Fiscal 2007 was a little bit over $6,500. This year, it's budgeted for $3,000. Are you planning not to do any work? Or people in your office not planning to do any work?
We've been buying equipment. We bought some new computers, and we're finished buying new equipment for the time being. We're trying to upgrade and get a little more new age, get things on the computer instead of having things typed all the time. So I bought a new printer 1 year that's going to work with some new computers that I bought this year to get us hooked up to a system for electronic marriage registration and some birth certificates.
So 3,000 is adequate for your office?
It should be. We're pretty thrifty.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
The vault storage memo that was sent out about space being used in the building, has there been any response, and is there anything that's moving on in-house vault storage?
Those responses were to go to the building commissioner. We haven't had an opportunity to meet and review those responses as of to date.
Okay. Councilor Cruz?
Thank you, Council President. You answered one of my questions, but I did have another one. And this hasn't to do with printing. The printing that, I believe the line item we took off yesterday, how much actually printing was your department actually doing from that printing press downstairs?
We do a tremendous amount.
Tremendous amount.
We do everything in-house, all of our forms, certificates, with the exception of some pre-printed liquor licenses that we order from a company. They're all pre-printed, they're not special order. But they're really a state form. Everything is done in-house.
And with that line item gone now, how is that going to affect your budget here?
Well,
I guess my point, I'm a little concerned about numbers costing more at a later date.
printing not being available from in-house.
Yes, that's correct.
We're going to need an opportunity expense line item. I don't know whether it will increase. I don't know whether it will decrease. I haven't looked outside to see the cost. We have forms printed that we've always had in-house.
Thank you. And I would ask, I'm not sure how the fellow councils feel about it, but I would like, if at all feasible, to get some sort of, from each department head, that it could affect a bottom line number as to what their projections were, what they were spending currently, and what they could be spending at a later date. Because I didn't realize at the time there are some specialty items that this printing press that does downstairs that not just any printing company does. And I think it's important to the council that if the numbers are far too excessive and we need to revisit it, then we probably should, cost-wise.
Just out of discussion, I mean, the forms that she does is double-sided copies and single-sided copies. So, I mean, it's not like you can't run them through a copy machine. Just because they have them batch printed downstairs, it doesn't mean that in some cases they couldn't be either sent out in bulk or done here and put on the shelf.
I understand, but could you do the same thing with a birth certificate or a death certificate? Because I understand we do our printing for birth certificates here and death certificates here, and I don't believe that could be done without that press or sending it out the press. And those are just two of the items that I learned about just recently, so I'm a little concerned about that issue.
Is there anything specialized about a birth certificate or a death certificate?
It has to be done on special paper.
To last?
Yeah. And we do have some duplicate and some triplicate forms that we use. All the automatic amusement devices that we use for license commission, those are all duplicate forms. And I do have some forms for elections that are actually triplicate.
Thank you.
Anything else on page 15? Moving on to page 12, election and registration. Amount requested, $32,064. Amount allowed, $32,064. Councilor Cruz?
I'm on automatic here. Thank you, Councilor.
That's fine.
And could you tell us why in 07 we had 72 and now we're required to have 78 as far as number of employees? I see the...
We are mandated by the federal government starting this year to have handicapped accessible voting equipment at every polling location.
So
We're going to need one extra person to staff that equipment. And actually, I'm meeting tomorrow morning at the Clerk Neighborhood Center with the director there. She and two of her staff have volunteered to be three of those people. I'm still looking for three more. They are all bilingual, so they're going to be multitasking throughout the day, staffing the handicapped voting equipment, assisting people, assisting with any translation that might be necessary, and then hopefully helping the wardens at the end of the night with some tallying.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 13. Election expenses requested $30,025. Amount allowed $30,025.
find on this page.
Moving on, City Council, page 10. Amount requested by mayor, $99,000. Amount allowed by mayor, $92,300. Councilor Donnelly.
Can anyone tell me where that 92,300 came from?
That coincides with the petition that the council voted on to cut $11,000 for over an 18-month period. And so the mayor reflected that.
But there's never been a vote on that, really.
We didn't vote on it, we changed our mind.
Yeah, the mayor made that change.
That's how he made the change.
Can he make that
It made the
change?
same, right? Changed our mind.
It didn't pass the
There-
council.
I guess, I don't know, is there an ordinance? There's an ordinance, so if the ordinance doesn't change, then he would have to put the money back.
Right. He was anticipating that that would go through, and so
Right.
he reflected it.
Councilor Boisvert.
That request was never voted on and never accepted.
Councilor DeSalvatore.
You're going to love this. I read in the newspaper, legally no, but we're going to do it anyway. That was to answer your question as to whether or not he could do it.
Is it illegal?
So he's reduced our salary?
I'm just saying, you were asking the question, can he do that? And I recall having to do with another position in this city. The answer was legally no, but I'm going to do it anyway.
I read that.
I read that as well. Councilor Cruz?
I just wanted to reiterate what, thank you, Council President, what was said just earlier, that it's still in finance. That it was, we remanded it back to finance, so it's still on the table.
Okay. Moving on to page 11. City council expenses are requested $19,200, allowed $17,500. Go right around. Councilor Cruz?
Question was in travel and meetings. What exactly
Very
is
important.
travel and meetings?
When the counselors go to, for instance, the MMA annual meetings, that's not the staff travel and meetings, that's your travel and meetings. And conferences.
Have we used any of that monies in the past?
You have, you've used some,
Okay.
not a tremendous amount.
I didn't realize it was there, that's why I'm asking the question, because I've been to a couple meetings, but I paid from my pocket, which is fine with me, so, but now I know it's there. Thank you.
Councilor Boisvert?
Yeah, travel and meetings. I'd like to make a motion to reduce that back down to 500.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to reduce travel and meetings from $2,000 to $500. Motion was made and seconded. Discussion, Councilor Donnelly.
Speaking on the motion, thank you, Mr. President. This travel and meetings, I'm not saying we need it, but it's there to encourage anybody that can't afford to go to meetings to go. Being on the zoning board or the planning board or some of the others, there's seminars that are given across the state. And it gives you an opportunity to see how other communities work, how the Mass Municipal Association, they have all the information from 351 cities and towns. If you do not attend these meetings as often as you can, you're living in a vacuum. You think that the whole world evolves around Pittsburgh, but it doesn't. It's an eye-opener. So I think the money should be there. I think people should be encouraged to go. They don't want to not have enough money for everybody to go. There are communities in January, Lunenburg, for instance, they bring 15 to 20 people down. All the selectmen, chief financial officer, treasurer, you name it, they go down, and they meet lots of people and find out how they solve their problems. I sometimes believe that if more of us participated, because I know the mayor participates, but I think we also have to take some of the advice they give us too. But I think the money should be there. Encourage everybody to go. I mean, education's a wonderful thing. Don't take it away from somebody that might be here that does not have the money to go. Thank you.
Councilor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. President. I went to one of these meetings last year. It was a very good meeting. That's where I got my football. I did get a lot out of it and enjoyed it there. But I would like to cut it out altogether. We're in a fiscal crisis. And we've been after everybody that's come before us to cut this. And I would be a hypocrite if I didn't cut it down to nothing. So I won't vote for that particular motion, but I'm going to make a motion a little later on to say to cut it out entirely. Thank you.
Councilor Tran?
Just a little bit clarification, Mr. President. Wasn't the motion to eliminate that entirely?
Travel and meeting, to reduce the travel and meeting from $2,000 to $500.
Okay. This is one of the few things that I agree with Councilor Donnelly, and he is absolutely correct in discussing this travel meeting expense line for the City Council. It was well said by him, and I absolutely agree. That's all. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The other 8. Next is Councilor DeSalvatore. Right, I'm still going from the prior discussion to the,
Knowing what's coming, I'll yield my moment to Councilor Clerk.
Thank you,
Councilor
Councilor.
Conry?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I'll throw it back at you and let you do what you want with it. Thank you.
Councilor Conry?
I yield to Councilor Clark.
Councilor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, councilors. Again, I'd be hypocritical if I voted any money for this, so I would make a motion that this be cut to 0.
Second.
Motion made and second to cut travel and meetings from 2,000 to 0. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 4 in favor, 4 in opposition. The motion does not carry.
Isn't there 9 people here?
Who didn't vote?
There's 9 people.
Vote. Did you?
Why would-
6, though.
There is 9.
Could you ask again, Mr. President?
Show of hands, Mr. President.
All those in favor?
Of cutting it to
Raise,
0?
cutting it
Cut
to
it to
0.
0.
1, 2, 3, 4,
You were
5.
the one that we didn't count.
I raised my hand.
Maybe it was your other hand you raised.
All those opposed? 3 in opposition.
No.
Motion.
Wait, I got the wrong
It is
vote.
denied. There's that
I
budget.
did it wrong. I did it wrong. I got confused. I didn't want, I was with Mr. Donnelly and him, and Mr. Tran.
So
Can we do it again?
5 to 4.
5-4.
Doesn't pass.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Reducing the money back to 0. Councilor Conry, Councilor DeSalvador, Councilor Clark, Councilor Boisvert, and Councilor Joseph. All those in opposition of reducing it to 0 is Councilor Donnelly, Councilor Tran, Councilor DiMartino, and Councilor Cruz. That motion carries. That line item is 0. Anything else on page 11? Councilor DeSalvatore.
The $5,000 for MGL and city code supplements. Now, I know personally, I've never picked up the MGL, and that's probably the biggest of the expenses, correct?
Would you repeat the question, please?
I-
I'm
I've-
sorry, I was looking at my vote tally.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you are given two jobs here, aren't you? The MGL is the bigger of the two
So it does.
items listed on that single line, right?
Right,
correct?
right.
Could you give me an idea of what the price is per MGL, Mass General Law book, that hardcover that you hand out to us upon request when we do request it?
The Mass General Law books or the code book?
It's a brown binder. I've seen somebody.
The red binder or the black? The
Red. Is it red? All right, it's a red one.
red, okay, the code book. The cost of it?
Yeah.
Well, we're not buying new books now. It would probably cost, this is a complete estimate at this point, $300 to $500 to replace one of those code books. What we pay for annually is the city code supplement, the annual supplement that the new pages for the code book for the new legislation that was passed during the prior year. Anyone who has an actual hard copy book has to take out the old pages and put in the new pages. Those are called an annual supplement.
Okay, that's
And
a
it's the price
better
varies.
explanation there, because I know I've never picked up one of those books, and I thought that if none of us, or most of us, weren't picking them up, that we could save most of that money. But you're letting me know that the supplements themselves is where this $5,000 is mostly generated from.
It's that, let me just explain who has the code books. There are several departments. Most department heads in the city have the actual hard copy book. The law library has one, the clerk of courts has one, and we have 4 or 5 in the vault. We have to keep them updated annually with the new legislation.
But what I'm saying is, it's the supplement itself that generates that cost.
That cost, as well as all the new books each year for the actual Mass General Law books, the ones on the shelves in my office. There's about probably 50 or 60 volumes, and they are updated every year also.
Thank you.
Counselor Donnelly?
Thank you, Mr. President. With this new world of technology we're living in, I'm quite sure that a lot of hardcover will remain. Would there be much of a reduction if you eliminated the ones that didn't have to be in a hardcover form? In other words, they're all electronic?
Well, we have phased out a lot of the hardcover code books. We don't have nearly the number we used to have with the old, smaller gray ones. Personally, I never look in it. I use my PC code book for Windows all the time. And some departments also have that as well.
But everybody would have access to that now.
Well,
Anyone that pretty much has a computer on the
yeah,
internet.
we're licensed for so many users for the PC code book version, which is a little easier to use than the internet version. But anybody who has access to the internet can use the internet version, and we pay for that annually.
So I'll just get back to my question. Is there a time that, are we doing too much paper duplication now, or can we continually cut over the next few years? Will we save some money by eliminating some of this printing and?
We could require some departments to get rid of their hard copy code book and use the PC version.
I'm just wondering, because if you print one page, the setup to print one page or 100 pages is probably going to be about the same price from a printing standpoint. And how many copies do you make? or
Well,
get?
this is done through,
On the
we don't do
updates.
it in-house. This is through general code.
Right. How many updates do you get to distribute?
I think we have a total of about 20 books.
So whether they do one or
It's not that many.
101, it's about the same price, so there won't be much savings. Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Councilors, yep, but motion made and second to adjourn. Just schedule change in case we need to keep up with these things. Wednesday night's budget session has been canceled out of respect for Councilor Caddy's family and for what we need to do that day. We've rescheduled the meetings starting at 6 p.m. on Monday, the 25th, starting with the library at 6 o'clock, and then continuing with the schedule that we had for Monday, for Wednesday evening. Also on there is, I'd like to have an overall discussion on the budget cuts that we've made before we go into a council as a whole meeting and vote on the budget. So there's on that night is also a review of the budget by ourselves. I want to make a public apology to Councilor Connery this evening for not going to the Committee for Property. And I think that that's something that we really need to make a little bit of extra care and notice to at this moment where we have so many meetings scheduled, to make sure that we're watching our schedules for, because every counselor has been asking me at different times, what time do we start tonight? What time do we start tonight? So it's kind of getting a little bit confusing with everything that's going on. A reminder, tomorrow night we start at
Making any noise in your mouth?
6. We have a joint committee convention at, that's why I don't.
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, just remember, Councilor Connery, if you could update us all as to what time we will be starting tomorrow evening?
The joint convention is at 6:30
It's
to elect a school committee member.
At 7 o'clock, I believe, we have an appointments committee meeting.
7:15.
7:15, 7:30, council meeting, followed by budget.
We'll be here till 11.
Bring your lunch, Councilor DiMartino, and bring some for me.
Snacks. Councilor Cruz?
Council President. I'm not sure, are we doing anything for Councilor Caddy?
Well, as soon as we find out what's going on, we'll know more.
Great. I know there was something done recently, and I wasn't even aware of it, so, and something, in reference to something else. Okay. And I just appreciate some info.
Councilor DiMartino?
You know, with this crisis that we have and with all of the people that work in the city and how they're so stressed out, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our clerk. I think she's been one of the best clerks. I'd probably say she has been the best clerk that we've had. And sometimes we forget to say thank you for the little things. And I would like to say thank you to you, Anna, for doing such a great job. Okay?